I don't know what kind of ghetto lottery you two hit, but your little joyride in first class is over. Now." Flight attendant Brenda Hatcher didn't just speak the words. She spat them out, each syllable dripping with a venomous disdain that seemed to poison the recycled air of the cabin. Her eyes, caked in a layer of frosty blue eyeshadow, raked over the two young black women seated in 2A and 2B. She made a show of it, a grand theatrical roll of her eyes, a performance for the other, whiter faces in the premium cabin. "These seats," she continued, her voice rising to a nasal pitch that grated on the nerves, "are for our valued paying customers, not for charity cases." 18-year-old Kiana Carter slowly lowered the leather-bound book she was reading. Her gaze, cool and unnervingly steady, met the flight attendant's. Beside her, her twin sister, Imani, paused with a glass of cranberry juice halfway to her lips, her motion frozen in a tableau of disbelief. The ambient hum of the aircraft engine seemed to fade, replaced by a thick, uncomfortable silence as the surrounding passengers, ensconced in their plush leather thrones, slowly turned their heads. The curtain had just gone up on a drama they hadn't paid for. Brenda's sneer intensified as her eyes swept over their luggage stowed neatly in the overhead bin, a matched set of high-end, graphite-colored suitcases that cost more than her last 2 paychecks combined. But she didn't see luxury. She saw fraud. With a flourish of a perfectly manicured hand, she pointed a long, accusatory finger toward the back of the plane. The gesture was so exaggerated, so deliberately demeaning, that a man in the row behind them audibly winced. "I don't know how you girls scammed your way up here, but your real seats are back in coach, that way." Kiana and Imani exchanged a look, a silent conversation that passed between them in a fraction of a second, a language forged over 18 years of shared existence. There was no panic in their eyes, no fear, only a weary resignation, and a spark of something else, something cold and hard as steel. Kiana's hand moved with deliberate slowness towards the seatback pocket, her fingers searching for her boarding pass. Imani's thumb, meanwhile, brushed against the side of her phone. Neither of them could have possibly known that this single, ugly moment of prejudice was the first tremor of an earthquake that would shatter an entire airline in less time than it takes to watch a sitcom. Have you ever been so utterly convinced of your own righteousness that you were willing to torch your entire career, your reputation, and your company's future in the span of 10 minutes? Brenda Hatcher was about to find out what that felt like. With a hand that was impossibly steady, Kiana produced her boarding pass. The bold black letters were unmistakable. Carter, Kiana, Seat 2A, First Class. She held it up for the flight attendant to see. "Ma'am, here is my ticket," she said, her voice a low, calm counterpoint to Brenda's screeching hysteria. "As you can see, I'm in the correct seat." Brenda snatched the pass from her fingers with a reptilian quickness. She held it inches from her face, her lips pursed into a thin, bloodless line as she scrutinized it like a counterfeit bill. "This has to be fake," she declared, her certainty absolute. "There is simply no way you two could afford these seats." She waved the ticket dismissively, as if swatting away a fly. "Probably printed this off on your computer at home. A nice try, but the show's over." That's when Imani's phone came up. The screen was already glowing. She wasn't just holding it, she was recording. "Excuse me," Imani said, her voice smooth as silk but laced with a threat. "Can I get your name, please? I want to make sure I spell it correctly for the caption." "Put that phone away," Brenda snapped, her face flushing a blotchy, furious red. Her voice climbed another octave, cracking with rage. "You are not permitted to film on my aircraft." But Imani didn't stop. The little red icon in the corner of her screen was already live. A number flickered beside it, a number that was growing with sickening speed. The live stream on her Instagram had begun. 58, 97. 154 viewers were now watching, their digital eyes peering into the claustrophobic tension of the first-class cabin. Timestamp: 10:17 a.m. The flight attendant stabbed at the call button above her head with a violent jab. "Susan, I need you up in first class, right now," she barked into the intercom. "We have a situation." Within moments, Gate Supervisor Susan Albright bustled through the curtain from the jet bridge. She was a woman in her late 50s, with a helmet of stiff blonde hair and a face permanently set in a mask of weary annoyance. She had been with Apex Air for 30 years, and in that time, she had come to believe she could size up any problem in 5 seconds or less. She looked past the calm, composed sisters and straight at her agitated flight attendant. "What is it now, Brenda?" Her tone already dripping with the assumption that the problem lay with the passengers. "These two," Brenda said, gesturing with her whole body, "are in first-class seats with what I am positive are forged tickets. They're refusing to move." Susan didn't ask to see the boarding passes. She didn't pull out her tablet to check the passenger manifest. She didn't make a single move to verify the facts. She simply looked at Kiana and Imani, at their dark skin, their youthful faces, their braided hair, and her brain, hardened by 3 decades of ingrained biases, made a snap judgment. "All right, girls," she said with a sigh of put-upon authority. "Let's not make this any more difficult than it needs to be. You need to move to the seats you actually paid for. You're holding up the entire flight." Timestamp: 10:22 a.m. "I've already called airport security," Brenda announced with a triumphant smirk, crossing her arms over her chest. "They'll be here any second to escort you off." As if on cue, Officer Miller appeared at the door of the aircraft. He was a broad, imposing man, his face weathered and tired, his eyes scanning the cabin with an air of someone who just wanted to get this over with and get back to his coffee. "What's the problem here?" he asked, but his gaze was already locked onto the twins, marking them as the source of the disturbance. "Criminal trespassing," Susan stated flatly, the words hanging in the air like a death sentence. "They're refusing to move from seats that aren't theirs." Kiana's voice, still impossibly calm, cut through the tension. "Officer, would you be willing to look at our boarding passes? Or perhaps you could check your own system. Our tickets are confirmed." Officer Miller barely gave her a glance. He directed his words to the airline staff, a clear signal of whose side he was on. "Ma'am, please let me handle this." He never asked for their IDs. He never made a move to verify a single piece of information. He simply began to move toward the two sisters, his expression grim, his purpose clear. But as he moved, a strange collection of clues lay scattered in plain sight, completely ignored by the 3 arbiters of justice. As Kiana had reached for her boarding pass, the contents of her purse had shifted. A gleaming, jet-black American Express Centurion card, the invitation-only black card of billionaires, lay half-visible on her tray table. A slim leather business card holder had fallen between the seat cushions, and on the edge of one card, crisp lettering read, "Carter Dynamics," and the designer handbag at her feet, a custom piece of understated elegance, bore the simple, monogrammed initials KC in subtle gold thread. These were not the accessories of trespassers. They were the artifacts of a world so far beyond the comprehension of Brenda, Susan, and Officer Miller that they were functionally invisible. Their prejudice had blinded them to the reality sitting inches from their faces. Meanwhile, in the digital world, the situation was becoming anything but invisible. Imani's livestream viewer count was climbing like a rocket, 562, 879, 1 to 345 people. The comment section was a torrent of fury and disbelief. User 48201, "This is disgusting. Apex Air, you have a problem. Justice for all. This is literally a crime." Flying while black pilot, Iquan. Someone better get a supervisor who has a brain. These girls are about to own this airline. Newswatcher. Is anyone screen recording this? I am. Timestamp 10:28 a.m. Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled over the intercom, smooth and professional, oblivious to the catastrophe unfolding in his cabin. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're just dealing with a minor security matter up here at the front. We anticipate we'll be pushing back from the gate in about 10 minutes. 10 minutes. That was the deadline. 10 minutes was all the time Apex Air had left before its world came crashing down. Kiana's phone, sitting on the console between them, began to buzz. The screen lit up. Dad. She silenced the call. A moment later, it buzzed again. She silenced it again. Officer Miller noticed. Someone trying to get a hold of you? He asked, a hint of suspicion in his voice. It's just my father, Kiana said quietly. He gets worried when we travel. Well, Brenda muttered from the side, just loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. He's about to have a whole lot more to worry about. The witnesses were multiplying. In seat 3C, a woman named Sarah, a social media influencer with over 100,000 followers, had her phone up, her own live stream now running parallel to Imani's. Her caption, watching raw, unfiltered racism unfold on Yacht Apex Air Flight 7 on 12. This is unbelievable. In seat 4A, a man named David Chen, a partner at a major law firm, was typing a furious email on his laptop to Apex Air's corporate legal department, CCing the CEO. But the most powerful testimony was still coming through Imani's phone. Her follower count was swelling, her viewer numbers surging. 190, 23456, 3112. The comments were no longer just angry, they were calls to action. Activist Angel. Someone call the news. This needs to be on TV. Legal 7. These girls are handling this with so much grace. They're building a perfect legal case. Viral vids. This is going viral. I'm sharing it everywhere. Apex Air is cancelled. Timestamp 10:33 a.m. This is your last chance, Officer Miller announced, his voice low and menacing. He was done with talking. Either you get up and move to coach, or I will physically remove you from this aircraft. Susan Albright crossed her arms, a grim smile of satisfaction on her face. Finally, she whispered to Brenda. I knew they were trouble from the moment I laid eyes on them. Brenda nodded in smug agreement. Some people just think the rules don't apply to them. Kiana looked at her sister. Imani's face was a mask of concentration, her hand holding the phone as steady as a surgeon's. The viewer count was now ticking past 4,000. They had been raised for moments like this. Their father had drilled it into them. Stay calm, document everything, never let them see you break. But he had taught them one other thing as well. He had taught them where the real power lies. Imani, Kiana whispered, her voice barely audible. Keep the camera on them. Dad always said a day like this might come. Just then, her phone buzzed for the 4th time. Dad. This time, Kiana didn't silence it. She looked up, past the smug faces of the flight crew, and directly into the eyes of Officer Miller. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. Sir, she said, her voice polite and clear. Would it be all right if I took this call? I have a feeling it might help clear up this little misunderstanding. Miller hesitated, then shrugged, exasperated. Fine, but make it fast. We're done playing games. A hush fell over the cabin. Every passenger leaned forward. Imani's live stream now showed 522,278 viewers, all holding their collective breath. The airline staff stood with their arms crossed, radiating an aura of victory, absolutely convinced they were in the right. None of them, not a single one, had any inkling that they were about to be frontline witnesses to the single most expensive phone call in the history of commercial aviation. Timestamp 10:36 a.m. Kiana pressed the green icon on her screen. And then she hit. Speaker. A new officer had arrived. This one from the airport police department, Officer Schmidt. He was younger, more eager, and clearly looking to make an impression. "What's the situation?" he asked, surveying the scene with an air of practiced authority. "Trespassers," Officer Miller grunted, "in seats they didn't pay for, refusing to comply." Officer Schmidt puffed out his chest. He looked directly at the two young women. "Ladies, I am giving you one final warning. Move to your assigned seats in the back of the plane, or you will be placed under arrest for criminal trespass. Do you understand?" The live stream was a blur. The viewer count was exploding. 6,800, 7 to 500, 9 to 100. The comments were flying by too fast to read, a digital waterfall of fury. The hashtag #ApexAirScandal was starting to trend on Twitter. Screenshots were being fired across the internet like missiles. The story was breaking containment. At a local news station in downtown Austin, a young producer named Marcus was watching his social media feeds light up. His phone buzzed with alerts. The same live stream had been shared to him by a dozen different sources in under 3 minutes. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed a cameraman and ran for the news van. ETA to Austin Bergstrom International Airport, 12 minutes. Back at Apex Air's corporate headquarters, a social media manager named Lisa was watching her monitors with a growing sense of dread. The company's sentiment analysis, normally a placid sea of green, was suddenly a raging ocean of red. "We have a problem," she said, her voice tight into her phone to her director. "A big one. There's a live stream. It's really bad. Our staff is trying to remove 2 black teenage girls from first class." "How bad is bad?" her director asked. Lisa refreshed the screen. "Over 10,000 viewers and climbing. The Apex Air scandal is the number 3 trending topic in the US. The pressure inside the aircraft was reaching a boiling point. More passengers were starting to speak up. David Chen, the lawyer in 4A, stood up. "Excuse me, officers," he said, his voice ringing with authority. "Have you actually made any attempt to verify these young women's tickets? Because I personally saw their boarding passes, and they clearly designated first-class seats." Brenda whirled on him. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to return to your seat. This does not concern you." "Discrimination on this level concerns every single person on this plane," Chen shot back, holding up his own phone, which was now also recording. An elderly woman in 1A, her voice frail but firm, spoke up. "I've been watching this entire fiasco. The flight attendant has been hostile and aggressive from the very beginning. Those girls have done nothing but show their tickets." Timestamp: 10:39 a.m. Officer Schmidt had had enough of the passenger rebellion. He reached for his belt and pulled out a pair of plastic zip tie restraints. "That's it. I've had it," he announced to the cabin. "You're both under arrest. Criminal trespass and interfering with the duties of a flight crew." Kiana's eyes widened just for a second, but her voice didn't waver. "Officer, you can't arrest us for trespass when we have valid tickets to be right here. That's not how the law works." "I don't care about your opinion of the law," Schmidt snapped, grabbing her arm. "Turn around, hands behind your back." The stream went supernova. 12,000 viewers. 15,000. It was being shared by blue-check journalists and civil rights activists. A prominent civil rights attorney in Austin saw the stream and was already in his car, speeding towards the airport. A reporter for the New York Times aviation desk was on the phone with her editor. The story was no longer local. It was national. The first-class cabin was in open revolt. Passengers were standing, phones out, yelling at the officers and the crew. The fragile order of air travel had completely disintegrated. The energy had shifted from uncomfortable silence to righteous fury. Timestamp: 10:42 a.m. At Apex Air headquarters, CEO Patricia Cole was yanked out of a quarterly earnings meeting. Her chief of staff burst in, phone in hand, his face ashen. "Patricia, you need to see this, now." On the massive boardroom screen, they watched Imani's live stream. They watched in mute horror as Officer Schmidt cinched a zip tie around Kiana Carter's wrist. The stock ticker in the corner of the screen, which had been stable all morning, suddenly dipped. Then it dipped again. "Get me legal," Patricia whispered, her voice hoarse. "Get me the head of airport operations. Get me a goddamn exorcist. Find out everything there is to know about that flight, now." Both sisters now had their hands bound behind their backs. With incredible dexterity, Imani managed to prop her phone up on her seat, keeping the camera aimed at the unfolding disaster. The viewer count surged past 20,000. Cheryl, the flight attendant, looked like she had just won the lottery. "Finally," she breathed, a look of pure vindication on her face. "I knew there was something off about them from the second they walked on." Susan was already thinking about the paperwork. "We'll need to file full incident reports, have them banned from the airline for life." Officer Schmidt grabbed Kiana's arm to haul her to her feet. "All right, let's go. You've caused enough trouble for one day." But Kiana didn't move. She turned her head and looked directly into the lens of her sister's phone, her voice ringing out, clear and strong, speaking to the tens of thousands of people watching. "My father always taught us that dignity is not something someone can take from you. It's something you can only give away. And we have not given ours away." The comment section exploded. "Warrior Queen. These girls are my heroes." "Truth. Tell her. Stay strong, sisters. The world is watching." "Big trouble. Oh, someone is about to pay. Big time." The phone call. The speaker was still on. As Officer Schmidt began to pull Kiana from her seat, a voice, calm, powerful, and radiating an authority that dwarfed everyone in the cabin, filled the silent aircraft. "Kiana, honey, are you all right? This is Dr. Elias Carter, CEO of Carter Dynamics." The name landed in the cabin not like a pebble, but like a meteor. The world stopped. Officer Schmidt's hand, which had been gripping Kiana's arm, went limp. His knuckles were white. Susan Albright's smug expression didn't just falter, it shattered, the color draining from her face as if a plug had been pulled. Brenda Hatcher just looked confused for a second, then a wave of dawning, sickening horror washed over her features. The name echoed in the silence, a thunderclap of consequence. Carter Dynamics, the single largest private aerospace and defense contractor in the world. The company that designed, built, and maintained the navigation, avionics, and safety systems for nearly 70% of the commercial aircraft currently in the sky, including the very plane they were standing in. The phone call didn't just stop time, it reversed it, forcing everyone to re-examine the last 20 minutes through a terrifying new lens. "Hi, Dad," Kiana said, her voice still perfectly level, a stark contrast to the maelstrom of panic erupting around her. "We're okay. We're just having a bit of confusion regarding our seating arrangements on Apex Air Flight 712 to New York." Dr. Elias Carter's voice, transmitted through the tiny phone speaker, carried the weight of a man who commanded boardrooms and briefed generals. It was a voice that didn't need to be raised to be heard in every corner of the globe. "Confusion?" he repeated, the single word laced with ice. "Kiana, are the zip ties I'm currently watching on your sister's live stream part of Apex Air's standard customer service protocol for first-class passengers?" The live stream view count exploded past 30,000. The comments became a blur of capital letters and exclamation points. Carter Dynamics? Those are Elias Carter's daughters? Aviation nerd. This airline is officially deceased. They don't just use Carter Dynamics systems. Carter is on the board of their parent company. Wall Street Wolf. Short Apex Air stock now. This is a corporate extinction level event. Officer Schmidt's radio crackled to life, his supervisor's voice screaming through the speaker. "Schmidt, what the hell are you doing? Disengage! Disengage immediately! That is a Code Omega situation! Get out of there now!" But it was too late. There was no disengaging. Susan Albright, her face now the color of chalk, found her voice, though it was a trembling, pathetic squeak. "Sir, Dr. Carter, we were just verifying their tickets. It's standard procedure." "Standard procedure?" Dr. Carter's voice was dangerously quiet. "My executive assistant booked those tickets directly through your corporate liaison office 4 weeks ago. First class, fully flexible fares. Seats 2A and 2B. Confirmation number APX 881CD. The charge was for $5,800, placed on the Carter Dynamics Corporate Centurion card, the same card my daughter has in her purse. Would you like me to provide you with the transaction ID and the last 4 digits of the card? Or have you heard enough?" Susan was visibly shaking now, her carefully constructed world of authority collapsing into rubble around her. She frantically waved at the officers to back away, to undo what they had done. Dr. Carter continued, his voice a methodical, surgical instrument of destruction. "Susan, I assume you're the ranking employee on site. Let me give you a little context that you seem to be lacking. Carter Dynamics currently has a Level 1 maintenance and avionics contract with Apex Air valued at $1.2 billion annually. Our proprietary software runs on every single aircraft in your 900-plane fleet. Our 15,000 certified technicians are the only people on this planet authorized to service your flight control systems. Do you understand what that means?" The numbers hung in the air, each 0 a nail in the coffin of Apex Air. Business travelers in the cabin were frantically typing on their phones, dumping their stock in the airline. "But that's just the business side of things." Dr. Carter's voice deepened, the sound of a patient man pushed well past his limit. "I also happen to sit on the FAA's National Safety and Compliance Board. Next month, I'm scheduled to testify before a congressional subcommittee on airline operational standards. The subject of that hearing is systemic failures in customer-facing protocols. It seems I've just been handed a rather compelling, real-time case study." The realization cascaded through the cabin. Officer Miller was already backing out of the aircraft door, his face pale with the knowledge that he had assaulted the daughters of one of the most powerful men in the country. Officer Schmidt, his hands trembling, fumbled to cut the zip ties from the girls' wrists. The scattered business cards, the monogrammed bag, the black Amex, it all clicked into place with a horrifying, deafening clang. The lawyer in 4A, David Chen, spoke again, his voice clear and precise for the record. "I want it noted that I am a witness to this entire event. The actions of the airline staff and airport police were unprovoked, discriminatory, and completely unjustified." The retired judge in 1A added, "And I want it noted that these young women have behaved with more grace and composure under duress than I have ever witnessed. The failure here is total, and it belongs to Apex Air." Dr. Carter wasn't finished. "Now, let's talk about our contract. If you'd like to check, you'll find a clause in Section 14, subsection B. It's what our legal team refers to as the Dignity Clause. It stipulates that any verified act of discrimination by an Apex employee against a member of my family or a Carter Dynamics executive results in an immediate and total breach of contract. All services are suspended, effective immediately. All outstanding invoices become due within 24 hours, and a termination penalty of $250 million is triggered." He paused, letting the full weight of the apocalypse settle. "When I say all services suspended, I mean that as of this moment, your entire fleet is grounded. Without our daily compliance authentications, Not a single one of your planes is legally permitted to take off. You don't have an airline anymore, Susan. You have a collection of very expensive, very stationary aluminum tubes. Nointism. At Apex Air headquarters, CEO Patricia Cole was watching the live stream as her company's stock value plummeted in after-hours trading. It was a bloodbath. "Get me on the phone with him," she choked out to her assistant. "Now, patch me into that call." But Dr. Carter's voice softened for a moment, the steel-edged CEO receding to reveal the heartbroken father. "But forget the contracts, forget the money. Those are my children, my 18-year-old daughters flying to see their grandmother. They are honor students. They volunteer teaching coding to underprivileged kids. They have never been in a moment of trouble in their entire lives. And your staff, Susan, your employee Brenda, decided they were criminals based on nothing more than the color of their skin. You didn't just inconvenience 2 passengers, you assaulted the character of my family." As the zip ties finally fell away, Kiana rubbed her wrists. She looked around the cabin. It was a different world than it had been 20 minutes ago. The smirking flight attendants were gone, replaced by terrified, weeping employees. The indifferent passengers were gone, replaced by fervent allies and witnesses. The viewer count on the live stream had crested 50,000. News vans were now parked outside the terminal. "Thank you, Dad," Kiana said into the phone, her voice thick with emotion. I think they understand now." A new voice suddenly cut in on the call, tinny and desperate. Dr. Carter, this is Patricia Cole, CEO of Apex Air." The highest levels of corporate America were now negotiating a surrender live on Instagram. "Sir, I have no words to express how horrified, how profoundly sorry I am for the unconscionable treatment your daughters have endured. There are no excuses." The livestream comments went insane. They were witnessing history. "Ms. Cole," Dr. Carter's voice was back to its icy calm. "Apologies are insufficient. Actions are required. You have 60 minutes to present me with a plan. Not a plan to fix this flight, a plan to fix your company, a plan that includes immediate terminations, a multi-million-dollar fund to combat systemic bias in your industry, and mandatory, independently verified anti-racism training for every single employee, starting with your board of directors. If I do not have that plan in my inbox in 1 hour, the grounding of your fleet will be permanent." He took a breath. "Actually, Ms. Cole, I don't think you fully grasped the situation yet. Let me explain what happens to an airline's insurance liability and its stock value when it becomes public knowledge that their entire fleet's safety and navigation systems have been remotely deactivated." The silence that followed was the sound of an empire falling. The corporate surrender was swift and absolute. At 11:15 a.m., less than an hour after the call began, CEO Patricia Cole was back on the line with Dr. Carter, Kiana's phone still on speaker for the entire cabin, and the now 75,000 live stream viewers to hear. "Dr. Carter," she began, her voice strained but clear, "we have begun to implement the changes you required. Flight attendant Brenda Hatcher and gate supervisor Susan Albright have been terminated, effective immediately. Their final paychecks are being processed as we speak. The airport police officers involved have been suspended without pay, pending a full internal investigation, which I will personally oversee." The passengers in the cabin listened, spellbound. They were watching accountability happen in real time. "Furthermore," Cole continued, "our board has just approved the creation of the Carter Justice and Equity Fund, a $10 million endowment dedicated to providing scholarships for young men and women of color pursuing careers in aviation and aerospace engineering. We are naming your daughters as honorary board members of the fund, should they choose to accept." Kiana and Imani looked at each other, their eyes wide. This was escalating beyond anything they could have imagined. "Finally," the CEO said, her voice heavy with the weight of her next words. I have instructed our entire leadership team, starting with myself, to enroll in a comprehensive 6-month anti-bias and anti-racism training program, which will be administered by the civil rights organization of your choice. This will become a mandatory annual certification for every Apex Air employee, from baggage handler to pilot. Failure to pass the certification will be grounds for immediate termination. We are also, as of today, beginning the development of a passenger Bill of Rights that will explicitly protect against discrimination, with clear and severe penalties for any employee who violates it. Dr. Carter was silent for a long moment. Then he simply said, "A good start, Ms. Cole. Send the proposal to my legal team. We will be watching very closely." He then turned his attention back to his daughters. "Kiana, Imani, I am so proud of you both. Your grandmother is waiting. I think it's time your flight got on its way." With that, he was gone. Captain Rodriguez, who had been listening from the cockpit, came on the intercom, his voice humbled. "Ladies and gentlemen, and especially to Ms. Kiana and Ms. Imani Carter, on behalf of the entire flight crew, I offer my deepest, most sincere apologies for the delay and the unacceptable events that occurred on this aircraft. We will be departing for New York momentarily." Imani finally turned her attention back to her phone, to the tens of thousands of people who had become their digital witnesses and protectors. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking just a little. "Thank you to everyone who watched, who shared, who stood with us. This is what happens when we don't look away. This is what accountability can look like." She then ended the live stream. As the plane finally pushed back from the gate, the sisters sat back in their first-class seats. The same seats they had bought and paid for. The same seats that had nearly gotten them arrested. The same seats that had just become the catalyst for a revolution in the airline industry. Kiana looked out the window at the ground falling away, at the world shrinking beneath them. "Dad always said," she whispered to her sister, "that our response to injustice defines us more than the injustice itself." Imani picked up her cranberry juice, the ice cubes having long since melted. She smiled, a real, genuine smile for the first time that day. "Well," she said, "I think we responded pretty well." In the months that followed, the story of Apex Air Flight 712 became a legend. It wasn't just a news story, it was a watershed moment. Apex Air, under the watchful eye of Carter Dynamics, kept every single one of its promises. The Carter Justice and Equity Fund became one of the most prestigious scholarship programs in the country. The mandatory anti-bias training, initially met with resistance, slowly but surely began to change the corporate culture from the inside out. Other airlines, terrified of facing their own apex moment, preemptively adopted similar policies, creating a ripple effect of positive change throughout the industry. Kiana and Imani Carter were invited to speak before Congress, their calm, articulate testimony about their experience, backed by the irrefutable evidence of the live stream, was instrumental in the passage of the Passenger Dignity and Safety Act, a landmark piece of federal legislation that strengthened anti-discrimination protections for travelers. They didn't just take a flight that day, they changed the flight path for an entire generation. Their story became a powerful testament to a profound truth: that true strength isn't about how loudly you can shout, but about the unshakable dignity you hold within when the world is screaming at you that you don't belong. It's about knowing your worth so completely that no amount of ignorance or hatred can diminish it. What happened on that plane was ugly and unjust, but the response it generated was beautiful and powerful. It showed that when we use the tools we have, our phones, our voices, our platforms, to bear witness for one another, we can shift the balance of power. The 75,000 people on that live stream became more than viewers. They became a jury, and their collective judgment was swift and decisive. Have you ever faced a moment like this? A moment where you were judged not by your character, but by someone else's prejudice? Share your story in the comments below. Let's talk about it. Because every story shared is another crack in the wall of ignorance. And if you were moved or inspired by the courage of Kiana and Imani, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We are dedicated to telling the stories that matter, the stories of strength, resistance, and the enduring power of human dignity. Ring that notification bell, because you never know when the next story that can change the world will appear. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being a witness.